and I want to welcome everybody here today. So thank you for joining us. Looking forward to an incredible event here with two district presidents from Robert Half, Richard Dosing, and Tim Mullane. And of course, I've got my Hope for the Warriors team here with me as well. And again, just want to welcome everybody. Robert Half is a special guest. They've been with Hope for the Warriors and have partnered with us through several events, a lot of different events with our sports and rec department, and then now have started working with us in Warriors Compass as well, which is really a unique opportunity because of what we do with career transition. My name is Brian Papaki. I've been with Hope since 2017, and I am a retired Marine veteran. And like a lot of folks do, I struggled with my transition, and it took a couple years. Realized I wasn't really the right fit for what I was doing, found Hope for the Warriors, and it taught me a lot about transition. And we sort of developed our program going forward, and this is who we are and what we're doing. I'm going to let my team introduce themselves, and we'll start with Christy, please.
Thanks, Brian. I'm Christy. I've been with Hope for the Warriors since 2015, and I'm one of the certified career coaches with the Warriors Compass program. And I also manage Hope's military spouse and caregiver scholarship program. I will go to Michelle.
Awesome.
Hi, I'm Michelle. I have been with Hope for 7 years, or coming up on 7 years. I worked for several years on the intakes team as an intake services coordinator. So some of you may have actually spoken with me in the past if you've worked with Hope for a while. I am an MSW as well as a certified professional career coach here with the transition team at Hope. Taylor?
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Taylor. I'm also an MSW here at Hope for the Warriors, and I manage two programs. I manage our Transition Critical Support Program and our Drive for Hope program. I also served on our intakes team with Michelle. And fun fact, we both started on the same day 7 years ago. So looking forward to it. Thanks for having me.
Coming up on your anniversary. Congratulations to both of you. Richard, please tell us a little bit about yourself and then introduce Tim as well, please.
Absolutely. Good morning and good afternoon to everyone. Appreciate you taking time out to join us today. My name is Richard Dosing. As Brian highlighted, I am one of the two district presidents that sits out of the New York office. Tim Mullane is my peer as well. I've been with the company for 25 years, and Hope for the Warriors is an organization that I am extremely passionate about because I am of the mindset that myself and Tim and our team at Robert Half globally are in a position to help our military, which goes above and beyond just saying thank you. And I want to thank everybody for your service, but I also want you to use us as a vessel in your transition and also in your career. So with that, Brian, thank you. And I would like to introduce my peer, Tim Mullane.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you, everybody. Rich said it. I mean, it's an absolute pleasure to be here with Hope for Warriors. So thank you so much for your service and the opportunity to be a resource, and look forward to really going through some things that are important to you today, but also going forward, what can we do to help make a difference in your careers and your lives? So with that, Brian, I think I'm turning it back to you.
Thank you both. It's a pleasure to have you both here today. Just an honor to have you guys representing Robert Half and being with us. I'm going to kick things off and talk a little bit about Hope for the Warriors just for a few minutes, and really what we do and our concept of a well-being model, and looking at 360 degrees of care in that model. We believe that every part of your life touches another part of your life. And what I mean by that is you might have some sort of struggles or need some sort of support financially, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't touch you in social aspects or career aspects. And what we do when you come to Hope for the Warriors and you sign up for services is our amazing intakes team will kind of do an assessment of everything that you may qualify for and assign those programs accordingly. And that's where we step in from a transition team perspective and help you out with career coaching. We sort of side seat if you don't know much about career coaching, and it's really teaching you the aspects of what it takes to build your own career search campaign. It's building your career mental fitness is what I like to say. And we, like I said, we ride along that seat with you and do a little bit of searching along with you. We'll help you out with different aspects of interview support and any other areas that we can help get you into the career that suits your skill set. As we sort of transition into the different aspects of what we do in our career transition team, what we do is we bring on organizations like Robert Half to teach you a little bit about what other organizations out there are to support. And Robert Half has been, like I said, partnered with us for a while. And today's opportunity is for them to give a little bit about how they support the veteran community or warrior community and what they do to help us out within Hope. They work very closely with our transition team. Richard, time and time again, has helped out with, Christy, Michelle, and I, and we look forward to a long-standing relationship. But at this time, I am going to turn it over to Richard, and I will pull up the slideshow, and we will begin this.
Okay, thank you, Brian. So today's program and the data the information that we're going to share, I want you to look at it in a few different ways because there are a few buckets, right? The first part is based on your professional goals. Now, I want you to keep in mind, to the best of your ability, right? Because I understand the positions that some of you may be in. This is a career that we are going to share a lot of information on, right? So you're going to hear keywords that's going to repeat itself: patience, strategy, being memorable, using the resources around you, so on and so forth, right? It's going to be based on goals that you may have set in 2024. It's going to be on an assessment of those goals. Did you hit it? Were you off? Are there necessary tweaks? It's also going to be focused on goals that you may want to set next year, and whatever that may be, and then resources to support you in that endeavor. My peer, Tim Mullane, is going to share a lot of data with you, and it's current relevant data. And just to give you a little bit more information on that, we as an organization, we have surveys upon surveys upon surveys, nationwide and globally. And the data is given and focused on hiring managers, employees, right, at all different levels and at all different stages of their career, all industries, all sizes of companies. So the data that we're going to share is all inclusive. Okay, so with that, why don't we get started? So the next slide is focused on goals, right? Did you have goals? Why are goals important? Did you achieve those goals? What resources do you have around you to achieve those goals and position for those goals? And are there necessary tweaks in the event that you didn't hit those goals that you want to apply in 2025 and new goal setting? So as we whip along to the next slide, you will also see information on the importance of having goals, right? Motivation, being challenged, helping you make clearer decisions, enabling personal growth, so on and so forth. And Brian, we didn't cover this. Is this information going to be shared at some later date with your members?
Yes, we are currently running this Facebook Live, so there will constantly be a recording. We're going to do an aftermarket blog,
Awesome.
just talking about the event. So we will
Okay.
post this again.
Awesome. I don't want to speed through the slides, but I also want to get to the part where it's very informational and assessing the questions that you have. So if we can go to the next slide, Brian. So this is the smarter goal model, right? And some of the things that I highlighted in my introduction, being specific and the importance of why you need to be specific. And that's based on, do you have the opportunity and ability to do that? Because again, I want us to, I want to make sure that you all understand that we know what you're going through as well, right? But being specific, having measurable timelines and measurable goals and milestones. Don't set it where you can't reach it. Make sure that there's different stepping stones where it's achievable, because that builds what? That builds excitement, that builds motivation, right? Is it relevant to what you want? And we'll talk a little bit more about that. Time bound, do you have specific timelines where you can measure it, evaluate it, and revise it if necessary? So this is an important slide that if you draw reference to this later on, that I would recommend that you hold and keep on the side. Next slide, Brian. This is a worksheet that I would also recommend that you hold as you're assessing and trying to figure out your goal. What are your strengths? What areas that you're going to need help with? Who in your network that can help you? And I want to just speak about that for 2 seconds. There are slides about building your network and building your brand. Selective is the word I'm going to use, right? There's one thing to say, hey, I'm going to accept everybody in my network. And that's good. But you're not going to use everybody in your network. So depending on what your goals are, depending on, where you need help, that's where you're going to be selective in who you choose to be part of your network and who you tap on as well. Okay. From talking to the Hope team, I know this is a worksheet that you also use, right, internally and with some of your members as well. So any thoughts on that that you want to expand on?
Yes, Rich. As a matter of fact, we used sort of a questionnaire at first, and I was really hesitant to use a goals worksheet because it was like homework right off the bat. But I found out that it was really important, and we discussed it. It was a team effort of really putting it together, of really identifying some things in the beginning with our clients, and it gave not just an inside look to how we can support them, but we can provide that worksheet back to them after they fill it out, and it helps guide them on their path. When you look at the aspects of, your experiences or who's going to support you, they can always refer back to those types of aspects of who their support network is. And I think that's important.
Yep. Look, it's an opportunity, and the reason why we led with the 4 or 5 slides that I just quickly ran over, like it is the foundation of how you're going to approach not only your job search but your career, right? We're going to share information on how to network, how to put together a resume, how to interview. We're going to share information how to get out of your comfort zone. What is extremely, extremely important is if you're currently employed, okay, use the equity that you have with that organization first. And we're going to walk you through how to do that as well, right? We're not saying leave that and jump ship. Use the resources around you wisely and strategically before you pull the trigger. And this worksheet and the previous slides are the key foundations in being planned and applying strategy. Okay. I know I'm rambling on, but I just want to make sure I hit on those few points because it's extremely important. Now I'm going to pass it over to my colleague, Tim Mullane, to share a little bit more on the data side and the current state of the U.S. labor market. So, Tim.
Thank you, Richard. And I would just re-emphasize a lot of what's going on here is this is an investment in yourself, right? So it's going to take strategy, persistence, and we'll keep coming back to that. And to your point, Brian, none of us maybe want to fill out worksheets all the time, but this is an investment in you. So with that, I'm going to touch on just a little bit what's going on in the market right now. And it's been a little bit of a challenging market. And Brian, if we can go to the next slide, that would be great. But there are jobs out there. So this is a little bit, as Richard said, what are we seeing out there as an organization? Well, why are people looking for a job? They're looking for a higher salary. They have bills to pay, and that's important. Benefits are always a very big part of why people look for other jobs. And by the way, why do you take a job? You need to take that into consideration, whether it's family life or quality of life in general. And flexibility is a big component as well, depending on what your overall goals are. Next slide. As I said, the market has, it's beneficial right now because there are less people out in the market right now. And we'll just kind of scroll through these, Brian, if we could. There are less people out there looking for jobs because it's been, people are happier in the roles they're in right now. And because there's been such uncertainty and what we see going on in the economy, people, are tended to be staying put in their jobs longer, which if you're out there looking for a role, this is a good time to get out there. Next. Oops. We're going.
Yep, I already clicked it. Sorry, I was ahead of you.
Oh, all good. No, I think I touched on this a little bit. It is good timing, all, because there's less competition out there. So I encourage you to, get out there and let's see what's going on out there in the market. And I can't see these stats. I'm going to minimize this.
So Tim, just one thing I want to highlight, right? And it goes back to this slide and then the previous two slides. The reasons why people look for opportunities, higher pay, more flexibility, ability to elevate their experience, and so on and so forth, right? It is extremely important that if you are employed in an organization that you like, that you have that cadence with your manager. And this is what I mean by using your equity first before looking outside. It's extremely important to have that conversation, have that open cadence, encourage performance reviews, encourage meetings, be planned on when you go and ask for something. Make sure you have the data to support that, but just don't look at it as, hey, I'm going to leave what I have and go look for something else when the opportunity might just be with the current company. So make sure you maximize everything.
That's an excellent point and well said. It's jumping jobs regularly is not necessarily a good career move either. So, all right, next slide, please. This again is one of the benefits for those of you who are looking for work is 84% of managers out in the marketplace right now are saying it's difficult to find skilled talent. So once again, it's a good time to be out there in the market. And as we go to the next slide, just there we go. So, a little bit about the current strategies. What I would say is everybody's looking to upskill. That's very both candidates and customers are looking to upskill. Because the market's a little bit tighter, there's a little bit of an opportunity where companies are looking around for candidates from different fields. They're hiring for maybe an overall talent level and what somebody can bring to an organization, as opposed to other markets where they want an exact fit, somebody who's done it before, if you would. Next slide. This is an important one, and even going back to the worksheet, it's hard to find time if you're working full-time right now to look for a job. So you need to carve out time. You need to be persistent. You need to have a plan. Again, love the worksheet. Then you need to carve out a certain amount of time to do it. It does take some patience as well. And that's, you want to stay employed. It's not easy to out there sometimes to find a job. To just carve out time in your day, right, or in your week for that matter, to make this a part-time job, if you would. Next slide. No, and look, these are some important bullet points that you want to really take into account. Whether it's, your skills are hot in the market, which is great. Rich and I speak with people all the time where the current role is just not stable. And if you want to grow a career, you want to be at an organization where you can count on the fact that their business is good, and that you can be there and you can grow within the organization. But certainly, business culture is very important. And obviously, we all have bills to pay. So what are salary raises looking like? But I also think, try and challenge yourself, try and raise the bar. So I think these are really important things to think about as you're taking a step back. Is it time for me to find another job?
Okay.
All right. And going forward, we're going to, again, we want to make sure we leave enough time for the questions you have and any questions you're adding into the chat. But Rich, let's kind of walk through this a little bit and see,
Okay. Let's do it.
what we can do. So next slide, please.
So if you're at a point where you've made a decision that you want to look for your next opportunity outside of the company you're currently employed with, and or your first opportunity, the first thing you need to do is make sure your skills are up to date, right? And then that helps you determine the direction that you want to go and follow and the resources that you want to acquire, right? So making sure your skills are up to date. Do you have relevant certifications if it's required for what you want to do, right? Have you researched your field? Tim mentioned 48% find it difficult when looking for a job because they don't have the time to do it. Like, this is a full-time job. When you're looking for your next role, it is a full-time job, right? So making sure that you are doing your research, you're asking for help, you're volunteering, you're putting yourself out there. Right?
Richard,
Yes.
question for you and Tim. Are there any relevant certifications? You're talking about making sure your skills are up to date, and these are some of the things to actions to take to make sure. But in regards to certifications or skills right now, are you seeing some that are more in demand than others, some that seem to be sort of the hot ticket right now, or may have some longevity that you would encourage people to take a look at and consider?
Certainly. I mean, look, I would speak on behalf of the accounting, finance, administrative side because that's my area of focus, right? And obviously having a CPA license, having a MBA in accounting and or finance. I mean, these are certifications that are helpful, not necessarily required for every single position, and understanding that requires a lot of education and a lot of time, right? So in its most simplistic form, there are opportunities out there that, yes, requires a certification, but then there's a host of opportunities out there that requires you to have transferable skills, whether that's, being more than just an entry level or basic user of the Microsoft Office suite, right? Whether that's having exposure in larger computing software. Just certifications are needed and are required for certain things, but I also think this is an opportunity to look at what you currently have and use it as a transferable skill in there, right? It's easy for me to say these licenses and these educations, but that takes time and that takes money and that takes effort.
I would add into that too, Michelle. My focus area is technology, right? Or within the tech space. And you've all seen it and you've all heard about it, hacking, risk. These are some of the protecting data. These are some of the number one skill sets that people in and around the technology part of any organization is looking for. So I couldn't encourage more to get those if you have that opportunity. But also, if you have those, make sure they're front and center on your resume and on your applications, because probably the most in-demand skill set right now is everything under the risk umbrella.
Thanks, guys.
You know, Michelle, you bring up an interesting point there as well, right? And expanding a little bit more on what we already covered, you could certainly be on the path of acquiring that certification, right? It's what's your point of entry, right? Don't wait to have that certification to search out a point of entry in that field, in that organization, in that profession, that maybe that point of entry doesn't require that certification. So you're getting the practical, or being in a position to get the practical exposure as you go through that certification process, whatever it may be. Okay. Crafting compelling application materials, and you could just hit click on that one, Brian. All basic self-explanatory stuff, right? Make sure that your resume is easy to read. Make sure it highlights everything that you've done, and don't be afraid to list bullet points, specific industries. Don't be afraid to customize your resume for the job posting. And we were chatting about the importance of using ChatGPT, which can certainly help you, but do not exclusively use it. Use it as a guide, use it as a foundation. You can use it to put together a quick resume that you will tweak, right? Because what you don't want to do is embellish the truth. What you don't want to do is pad your resume, because it will come back to haunt you. That is guaranteed. What you don't want to do is customize your opportunity letter using ChatGPT 100%, because it will come back to haunt you. Use it as a guide, but ChatGPT is a great resource when putting your application materials together. Be truthful. Don't, again, I want to stress, do not embellish it.
Richard, I have a question for you. With prepping your application materials, how important would you say writing cover letters are whenever you are submitting an application?
So, Tim, I'm going to ask you for help on this, because I am of the mindset that it changes depending on the economy, right? At one point, an application letter was required, otherwise your resume would be tossed. At one point, application letters weren't really required, because individuals were just screening through a resume. When you present your profile to a portal, which I know some of you have done, it's not reading the application letter. It's reading bullet points on your profile. It's pulling away information from your resume. I always like to err on the side of being overly cautious and say it is a good practice to do it, but don't write a thesis either, right? Stress why you think you're a good fit for that opportunity. Use the application letter conveniently for you and to your advantage, and put down transferable skills that applies or could be applied to the opportunity when you may not have relevant skills. So I guess, Christy, not to answer your question with a question, but I would use it to your advantage when you need to, when you think you don't have the necessary experience, and I would use it specifically to highlight transferable skills. Do not write a thesis. Please don't have it be more than just a couple of paragraphs, please.
Yeah,
because that's not going to help you.
I agree with what Richard's saying. I would double down. Most of what you're doing these days, you're applying to an application, and there's even a limited number, of characters you're allowed. So think brief, think bullet points. Richard said that on a couple of occasions, and that too is where you tweak it to the job itself, right? So you don't want to replicate your resume. That's an opportunity to explain why you think you would be of value to the organization. And we're going to talk a little bit about technology on the next slide, but I think in general, a lot of what you're using here without embellishing, you can find on the internet to help you with that.
But Tim, just to piggyback on that, right? And spot on. I would also use, Christy, you had me thinking, right? And I apologize if I didn't highlight this before. I would also use the cover letter, the application letter, and even on your resume, quantifiable successes, right? So what does that mean? I saved the money. I saved the company X amount of dollars by doing this. That's quantifiable. That separates you. I completed this assignment, 2 weeks in advance. Here's how I did it, right? If you don't have the ability to put that on your resume, which I strongly recommend, that's where it goes. Then the cover letter, application letter is where you would do that. But again, what's my thought process, right? Please don't let it be a thesis. Make sure that stands out in and of itself.
Before we move on from resume discussion, just a quick question. Is there a technique or any advice that you would give? We think about military spouses who we do also work with here at Hope and Warriors Compass. They often will have gaps in their employment history because of PCS moves and things like that. Where would be the appropriate place for them to address that? Would it be resume? Would it be cover letter? Would it be a follow-up? Would it be during the interview? And is there sort of a rubric that you would recommend or a starting point, guidance on how to address that appropriately?
I would start, and Richard already touched on this. Be straightforward. There's nothing to embellish. I would put it in the resume. Cover letters often in this day and age don't make it to the hiring managers, right? So put it in the resume and be very straightforward, exactly what your timelines are, because that's a legitimate reason to have applause. And there's nobody out there, for the most part, that you're going to be reaching out to who isn't going to respect the sacrifice you've made in terms of your career in order to, whether it's raise a family, whatever it would be as a military spouse. So I'm from this, put it right there in the resume. Here's the timeline. So here's what I did prior to, here's what I've maybe done since. But that's what I would just encourage, to actually put it right there in the resume.
100% in the summary section. Front end it, take it off the table. There's nothing to run from and hide from, and be proud of that. The other thing I would say with the resume, and I know we're spending a fair amount of time on this slide, have someone proofread it for you. And somebody that you trust and somebody that you can depend on. It's always good to put a second pair of eyes or maybe a third pair of eyes on it.
Mm-hmm. Well said.
I think we spoke about this in the previous slide, right?
The one thing I would just touch on where we didn't is, again, use AI, use technology to help. You can Google resumes, right? You don't have to write a resume from scratch. Just Google it and use and tailor it to you. But what we didn't talk as much about, and I just encourage it, whether it's LinkedIn, whether it's different sites that you can go out there, ZipRecruiter, and you can network. Just highly encourage that.
Yeah. So Tim mentioned networking, and that's exactly what this is. Looking for less visible opportunities. I think that nailed it, right? There are opportunities that are posted where you can see it. Now, if it's posted where you can see it, make the assumption, which is true, that there are going to be multiple applicants. But if you're selective with your network and your network applies to the industries, the opportunities that you're looking to get into, make sure they know you're looking. Make sure they know you're ready to go, because that passive opportunity that's not posted out there, you could be the only applicant. And oh, by the way, your network can be the referral for you and be a reference for you. So be selective and make sure they know. Your network needs to know that you're looking.
Just be mindful when you're using these sites. LinkedIn, for example, you can code yourself as open to work. And a lot of people aren't aware of that. Now, I'd also say, who's out there with you. You don't want your employer, if you're currently employed looking for another job, to see you all of a sudden coded as open for work. But when in doubt, when you have recruiters like ourselves looking for people, one of the things we're doing is we're simply running a search on people who have told us now that they're open for a new opportunity.
Be specific with the recruiter and research the recruiter that you select, right? We're very specific and focused in the areas that Tim and I highlighted, right? If you're looking for a mechanical engineering opportunity, we may not be the best resource for you because that's not within our purview. But if you're looking for technology jobs, if you're looking for accounting jobs, if you're looking for administrative, HR, creative design, like we specialize in that. But make sure that you research the recruiter that you go with. The other thing that I would say, and maybe this is the opportunity to say it, your digital footprint is extremely important, right? Employers, your network, look at it. So as you're building your brand digitally, make sure it's professional all of the time. When in doubt, don't do it. Make sure it's professional, right? Because that is your brand. I have seen it numerous times where it comes back to haunt the individual in the ninth hour, where they lose the opportunity, they lose the credibility for a long period of time. Don't let that be you. So that digital footprint is extremely important, especially when you're building out your LinkedIn profile. Make sure LinkedIn is professional. It should be used at a professional level all of the time. Don't post on it, hey, I'm meeting a friend for Starbucks. Here's a photo of us. That's not what you want, right? So again, these are things that I just want to keep stressing on.
You know, Richard, we want to make sure we're keeping time for questions because a number of you already submitted. So my thought, maybe we jump to the maximizing interviews because I think that's an important one, and then maybe turn to a little bit of Q&A.
Absolutely.
What are your thoughts?
Let's go for it.
Look, this is an important part of the process, right? So you have the opportunity, you're sitting down. By the way, if you haven't done much of this, you're going to be nervous, right? You know, certainly have gone through that too. So prepare, right? Prepare ahead of time, have questions ahead of time. And to me, it's ask for the job. You know, if you're interested, and by the way, if you're not sure, ask for the job.
So
Tim, turn around.
So Tim, in talking about that, let's do a quick role play. Right?
Absolutely.
I'm the applicant, you're the employer.
Yeah.
Tim, it was a pleasure meeting you. You know, based on the conversation we had today, I am even more energized about this opportunity. Are you comfortable with everything that you've heard from me today to make me a viable candidate for this opportunity?
Well, you know, Richard, it was a pleasure meeting, and you do check the boxes. Now, I do have some other people who I'm currently interviewing as well, but I could see you being a part of this organization.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate that. And if you're comfortable with everything that you heard, what are the next steps? Because this is an opportunity that I'm extremely interested in.
See, and I really like ask for it. I always say, you know, ask for it 2-3 times, right? So Richard is asking for it. And again, you may turn around afterwards and go, maybe it's not the right fit. That's okay too.
Mm-hmm. The point we're trying to make is there are numerous ways to ask for it. This is the part where the human comes out, the humanization comes out, right? Use your teeth, use your smiles, use it as an opportunity for the interviewer to address any areas he or she may be unsure about. Because the question is simply, are you comfortable with, are there areas with, are there gaps that you might be concerned with? And that's a yes or no. That's a closed-ended question. That's a yes or no. If Tim says no, or if he says yes, there's actually one area, my response is, okay, let's talk about that. Because it gives you an opportunity to readdress it. Now, when we highlighted before, have someone proofread your resume, when you're prepping for an interview, your mirror is your best friend, or your best friend is your best friend, or your spouse or your significant other. Practice. Because with practice, your plan, it brings the nervousness down. Tim nailed it. Ask for the job. If it's a job that you're interested in, what are the next steps? This is something that I'm interested in, right? I don't know about any of you, but all I get in the mail are bills. And yes, I still have hard copies of bills coming. So a thank you note separates you and makes you memorable. Write a thank you note. Tim, do we cover that?
Yeah, I think that's great. And I would just reemphasize, maybe before we get to your questions, I still practice, right? I've been here for 20 years, Rich has been here for 25. I still practice. So please, or I like to say, LeBron James still practices. So why wouldn't I?
Yeah.
So no, I think that's great.
And just a caveat off of that, we do offer interview prep support. So don't hesitate to reach out to us if you do have an interview coming up, and we have interview prep notebooks and everything, workable guides to help you navigate that process. So we also can be your best friends. So just reach out to all of us here.
Awesome.
So there was a list of questions that was submitted, unless Christy, Michelle, are there other questions that people have put in?
Yeah,
Would
we
you
can
guys
forward-
like me to stop the slideshow?
It's up to you. The taking risks here real quick, and Tim and I spoke about this. Asking for the job is taking a risk. Asking for, are you comfortable based on what you've heard during our discussion? That's a risk. The risk isn't, being Tim, what's the word we used? Being haphazard with your career. That's not the risk we're referring to. Right? It's the risk in the interview process. Put yourself out there. Jump outside your comfort zone. Right? And don't underestimate your soft skills. That's the smiling piece. That's the humanizing piece. All right.
Yeah, I can stop the slideshow. We can go 2 questions. And I just want to kind of address this with everybody that, that's on Facebook and our attendees. We had a great list of questions that were submitted. And really what we want to do here is give the opportunity for Richard and Tim and some of my team as well to answer some of the things that really get presented to us day in and day out. One of the things that I'll start off with is what tips can you provide for veterans and military spouses to build a professional network? I know you covered some of that, but is there anything more specific to that community, especially when they're trying to get into a new community or industry? The military community is very different from a civilian community. So as they're transferring out of the military and getting into a new community, a new atmosphere, so to speak, what can they do to help build that professional network?
Well, I think one of the slides that we covered had LinkedIn, right? And when I hear professional network, I immediately go to that, right? And LinkedIn, your profile needs to be your digital resume. Your achievements, your experience needs to be on there. Equally important, and keep in mind I said professional and we covered the digital footprint, but equally important is being selective in who you go to join that network. Make sure that those individuals, do a litmus test. Those individuals can help you achieve your professional goals, short-term and long-term, right? Look them up as well. Doing Google searches, make sure that they have a digital footprint that's representative of a professional network, right? I'm of the mindset that if you want it more, you're going to have to put out the work, right? You're going to have to make time for that. You're going to have to be selective. You're going to, I'm not saying call them and interview them before asking them to join your network, but do your homework. That is no different than anything that you want in your professional career, right? It requires participation. I would also say don't be afraid of professional organizations that aligns with what you want to do. Once you've established that, join them. Some of them there's a nominal fee, others there's no fee. But make sure that there's a return on that investment. So have those milestone checkups as well, is what I would say, Brian.
Yeah, really well said. Going back to the question, look at it from an industry perspective. This question was well written, right? So it's an investment in yourself.
I have a quick question about Robert Half as an organization. Do you have any any specific programs or resources that support veterans and the military spouses in their job search or career development specifically?
The answer is yes. And you know, it could be in the form that we're doing it now. It can be at the very least giving you helpful tips and techniques on how to network, how to put together a resume, well, actually how to put together a resume, how to network, how to interview. It's not necessarily catered towards veterans and the military. It's catered to everybody.
Okay.
Like that is information that we offer. We could also put you on that path. You know, we highlighted relationships that we have that we can use to help get you that point of entry opportunity. If it's within the wheelhouse of services that we provide, and if it's outside the wheelhouse of services that we provide, we could use the relationships to at least get you a meeting to the best of our ability.
Perfect.
Right? Just keep in mind, there was a data point that Tim shared where I forget what the number is, but there's a high majority of companies that's looking to upskill. Right? And when you're looking to upskill, you have to identify your transferable experience, make sure it works, and then be trained.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. Thank you.
I'm going to touch on one here, and as I do, I just want to remind everybody that is actually in the session, please feel free to use the Q&A and chat to ask any questions that are not being answered. But my question is, when it comes to skills translation and service members, veterans, you know, relating those skills to the civilian community, one of the first things that I do is you got to get rid of the acronyms. But what is your suggestion and recommendation to translating that language for hiring managers in civilian industries?
You know, certain things carry across, you know, everything in life, right? So communication, leadership skills, right? What is it that every organization, whether it's military or the commercial space, use? At the end of the day, you know, people are looking to hire individuals that for their overall skill set and what they can add to the organization. So 100% agree with you, Brian. Be careful of acronyms, but read the job description, have a sense for what the company does, and then it can lead you to what's important to them, right? You know what's important to you, or if not, you're going to learn that through time. But what am I reading, and how can I, you know, share with them that I can be a great leader? I'm an excellent culture person. This is very detail oriented. Well, guess what? I'm used to following and executing on detailed instructions. Just to be thoughtful and mindful as you go through this process.
A quick question from our attendees, one that has come into the Q&A. This attendee shares that they are going on 2 years of unemployment within a career that they enjoy. 9 out of 10 of the careers request that you have experience before being hired. How do you gain experience when entry-level jobs pay 15 to 20 an hour and the cost of living is so high? Is there a suggestion when those 60,000 higher salary jobs require certifications and experience, but you can't really afford or to go to school to get back into a degree program or a licensure program? Are there resources that are out there that may help with that? I would encourage folks, our veterans and spouses, to reach out to Hope for the Warriors. That is something that we could have a discussion about. There are resources that we may be able to provide or give you information on. I don't know about you guys, Richard and Tim. Are you aware of anything through Robert Half or any of the organizations that you work with that might provide some type of financial support for that step to get those certifications to get into those positions?
Uh, so I guess the question would be, what exactly is this individual looking to do, so we can speak specifically about positioning for that, right? Because it's a little bit of a broad request, and I want to make sure that we answer it effectively. First of all, I'm sorry to hear that this person's been, 2 years looking for that. I know of an organization that was just introduced to me this past weekend, and it's something that I never heard of before. Now, I'm not saying it's relevant, right? But I heard through a neighbor of mine that there's a lot of a lot is I'm quantifying it, but there's an organization that trains military veterans to become certified watch repairers. And I found that to be interesting because we're talking about Rolex watches, we're talking about Tourneau watches, like we're talking about that. And I never knew that existed. And this organization pays for your education and sends you to Switzerland to get that certification. Again, I never heard of that. The reason I bring it up is I think it's important to understand what that person's is looking to do before we can say, hey, we do it, hey, we don't, this is what you should do, this is what you shouldn't do. So, Michelle, what I'm going to do is put myself out there. After you speak to that individual in detail, you could feel free to reach out to me, and we'll put our heads together on that.
Thank you so much. That's so kind, and I really appreciate that.
But just even to reemphasize, because again, my focus area is in the technology space, and we partner with firms throughout the US. There's one in Philadelphia we've been partnering with for a decade. And what they do is they train people to be technicians, computer technicians. And it's a nonprofit, and similar to what you do here with Hope for Warriors, they've trained thousands of people who couldn't afford, no cost to them, they couldn't afford to go through a tech school. And so we've raised money for them as well, but they go through training, and we've turned around and we found hundreds of their students jobs in the Philadelphia market. They have a location in Vegas and Nashville and a couple of others. So there are organizations out there that will train you so that you can get the certification or the experience in certain cases, right?
Thank you. Well, I guess I'll ask another question. Yay. So we do have a participant also who has asked, they are in the process of using their GI Bill to finish up their master's degree, which is very exciting. We congratulate them on that journey. And that is in industrial and organizational psychology. The client would like to get a part-time job, so there's not a gap in work history there, as well as get opportunities to get introduced into programs that are used in the human resources community. So they're wondering how to find a competitive part-time job. So not like a full-time permanent, but something that is competitive, something that will open up opportunity to add to the learning that they are experiencing with their master's degree.
So that's the practical component that we highlighted before, right? And that could very well be that point of entry into an organization to give you that, and it could very well be entry level, right? So that is an area that we can help with, because HR is a area that we service. Here's the other thing that I would say, Michelle, and using that as an example, right? Because competitive, right? And when I hear competitive, I think competitive salary. I think competitive opportunity, right? When you're making this move, and again, it is to the best of your ability because individuals needs to earn, families needs to be supported, bills needs to be paid, right? Flexibility is a word that I didn't highlight at the beginning of this, but flexibility is required, right? So I think when you think about your strategy and you think about your long-term career, right? If you have an opportunity to be flexible to get that point of entry opportunity, and flexibility could be hours, flexibility could be responsibilities, flexibility could even be compensation. If you have that flexibility, that separates you from individuals that doesn't have the flexibility and puts you on the road sooner versus later. Essentially, what I'm saying is don't hold out, take advantage of what's in front of you, assuming you can. Right? And
I couldn't support that and agree more. The opportunity is oftentimes more important than today's financial, if you can afford to pay your bills, right? Can I pull, just because we're running out of time, there's a question on here I'd like to address, unless there's another one that you all wanted to jump to. Right. So the question is, what type of remote or flexible jobs does Robert Half recruit for? And I would just be very mindful, going back to what Richard's saying too about the opportunity. People like the idea of remote, but customers more and more, since COVID has, in the rearview mirror, if you would, they want people on site. So I would just encourage you to look for the opportunity and look for the right job. You might prefer to work from home, but I wouldn't pass on a good opportunity to be able to work from home. This is about growing your career. It's not just about today paying the bills, but also the future. And you're seeing fewer and fewer remote jobs. So I would just encourage you to be a little bit into the mainstream of saying, I guess I have to go to the office.
Mm-hmm.
So talking about industry trends, like returning to the office, in today's job market, how long do you feel that it's taking individuals to gain employment, like through the hiring process? How long does it take typically?
So can I say that's a loaded question?
It is a loaded question, and I know it is. I know we just talked about this too before.
Yeah. So I think all things being equal, right? All things being equal, if there is an individual with the experience and the flexibility and basically I want to be on site 5 days a week and so on and so forth, depending on that functional role, it can be as soon as a week or two, right? So I want to be fair and true to that. On average, now this is full-time employment. Contract employment, which is another opportunity, or contract to hire, which is easier, is shorter, but full-time permanent employment, Tim, would you agree it's about 4 to 6 weeks?
Yes, those numbers, I agree with that, Richard, entirely. But you touched on this well. Go through this process with patience and persistence.
Yeah.
Right. So sometimes it can be fortunate, but oftentimes it can be frustrating. So I wouldn't want to throw something out there and say, wait a minute, 4 weeks, I should be done by now. Unfortunately, it can be more challenging than that.
Yeah, it's 4 to 6 weeks on average. One of the things I hit on, and again, I know we're on the time of 1 o'clock, but that's full-time opportunity. There's also contract opportunities and/or contract to hire opportunities where, yes, experience is required, and in some cases, there's a lot of transferable experience, more so than perm, right? Where it could be an easier process to be considered for that opportunity and start with that company because it's contract and/or contract to hire. Do not shy away from those opportunities.
Great.
Because those opportunities, guess what? You have the ability to audition for that role and show them what you're capable of doing, them meaning the company. right? You also have the opportunity to determine before signing a permanent offer with them, hey, is this the culture that I want? Is this the company that I want? Do I see myself growing here? Do they have the resources here? Right? So even though, we're talking direct hire permanent opportunities, there's also contract and contract to hire opportunities that might be an easier road to climb, right? Or to travel, I should say. Flexibility is also required there. Okay. So I wanted to make sure I highlighted that.
That's perfect. And I think that addresses one of the questions the participant shared is how she, oh my gosh, I cannot talk. I'm losing it. It's 1 o'clock and my talking skills are done. But are you okay with one last question?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So as recruiters, where are your favorite job search engines or places to recruit individuals from? I know Robert Half has amazing job board. But where do you feel that people are finding jobs the best in today's industry? Like job search engine. Where's the best
From
place?
our perspective, a majority of what we find in our own database, frankly. But when you go outside of it, and we talked about this a little bit, LinkedIn, Indeed's wonderful. You need to be on there. ZipRecruiter, there's a bunch. But from a professional, again, technology, a lot of the finance and accounting world, get on LinkedIn, build a good profile for yourself, and people will find you.
Agreed. And professional networking groups, because we highlighted the importance of a professional networking group when looking for an opportunity, right? And we spoke about that being passive versus public knowledge, a job being posted. But guess what? We also take full advantage of the professional networking groups that we belong to, referrals from candidates that we get all of the time, because those are passive candidates that no one else is representing. So when we speak to a potential hiring manager, we speak with 100% conviction. There's no one else representing this person outside of Robert Half. So it goes both ways. But I would add on to Tim and say professional networking groups and referrals.
Perfect. Thank you.
Well, thank you all very much. I think this was a fantastic time today. It was really a pleasure to have Robert Half, Rich, Tim, you representing Robert Half. Really, really a great opportunity. You passed such valuable information. I enjoyed the way the webinar went with the conversation back and forth. And I think that we just get better and better at this as we move along. I look forward to working with you guys again in 2025, another opportunity. And I want to thank everybody for joining. For those of you on Facebook, for those of you that joined as attendees, we're going to do a follow-up in case you want to go back and view this again. It's always going to be embedded in our Facebook Live, but we're going to look at information that may not have been covered and try and get that covered for you. Michelle, one last thing before we do, let's make sure we get that last question jotted down.
Yes, I've got it. So
Okay.
we will be addressing that to the participant who posted that last question. We'll reach out to you directly via email to follow up with an answer for you.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you all very much. It was a pleasure.
Thank you
Thank you,
all.
Brian.
Appreciate
Thank you,
the
Tim.
opportunity.
Absolutely
Have a
appreciate
great
it. Have a
day.
good rest of your day. Thank
Have a
you.
good day.